This is my first ever maxed Ironman account. Not being able to trade other players or use the Grand Exchange, this max cape took me 15.99 hours, a world record time. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss the route that I took and or any regrets throughout the journey. Of course, at the end, I'll host a quick Q&A from the questions you guys have left from my final episode. Let's jump into it. To start off, I'm going to show what the bank value looked like. The bank is extremely underwhelming, but it was commonly requested, so here we go. The first tab is mostly just junk from early on in the account that never got dropped, and it looks like it continues for a while. Although I do have a leftover 700 Toadflax seeds from Slayer. These are of course good to grow into brews, but since I was limited on bird nests, I never got around to growing them because they were useless for that reason. The garbage continues on for a while. I don't remember why I banked so many sets of monk robes, but I do know it was around the time of starting Wildy Slayer, so I guess I died a little less than I expected. I never ended up using my ensouled heads, thankfully. They were slower prayer XP an hour than using an altar, but it was always my backup just in case I ran out of bones before 99 prayer, which I did not. Some Warriors Ring PTSD from when we did DKs, do not miss that. 51k lava runes, and just a lot of random seeds from contracts, I guess. The glories that are 6 charges are from the Wildy, but that was actually after I maxed and before I took this video because I didn't take it immediately. 3000 brews, the one potion I actually decided not to sell to the shop. The 2.5k leftover giant seaweed kind of sucks. That was like 2 hours of farming, but I mean I ended up doing cranes instead, which I didn't know about at the time. My leftover 475 prayer potions that I never got around to using for Slayer. The 2 rings of endurance that I was too scared to sell to the shop, along with all of my Godder loot now it looks like. The rune count is completely off as I may have gotten those death runes after I maxed, so if the quantities look high, just know it probably wasn't that high when I maxed. Leftover basalts from farming. If you remember from when I got 99 prayer, I actually had a leftover 2 baby dragon bones, so I did get some extra since I've maxed. Oh wow, this actually shocked me. I don't remember having 800 marks left over, but I guess I wasted those. 668 redwood logs, all from post-max. All of the bird nests that I have are all from post-max. I've been doing birdhouse runs. My good old Skodos pet, don't forget about him. Raw manta rays, again a post-max grind. And pretty much from this tab downwards is all stuff that I've done after I maxed. So yeah, as you can see, we're poor. So while we do some AFKing motherload for the outfit, let's review some stuff. Unlike my first run, I don't really have many regrets this run. This is hugely due to the Brushsailor guide, as I practically followed this religiously for the first 2 chapters. At worst, skipping a step or 2 because they were PVM related, which obviously was not my goal. The first couple chapters were very easy to basically learn the Ironman game mode, enough to where after I finished the second chapter, the rest of the run was basically just very long grinds, so it wasn't too hard for me to craft up certain skilling paths with friends, because most of chapter 3 and 4, if I remember correctly, are PVM related. A couple things I would have done differently is I think grinding for the Berserker ring only on Slayer task would have been worth it for the Slayer XP. In episodes 6 and 7, we grinded a Dagannoth Rex off task to try to get the Berserker ring out of the way. We did of course go dry, but regardless, I think the Slayer XP would have been ideal. Another thing is, when we grinded green dragons for 70 prayer early on, I mainly did this to secure a safe Sins of the Father fight. I probably could have done Slayer until 70 task completions instead of 50 for early combat XP, and then used an alt for Jogar Bones to train to 70 prayer. Burnt Jogar Bones can be made from an alt and picked up on the Ironman for prayer XP. It's a silly method, but it has been in the game forever, so I don't think there are any intentions on actually calling it too OP to nerf it. From episode 12, this might sound like a small one, but doing 64 to 70 construction with mahogany planks instead of teaks cost me an extra 4 mil or so. Now, at the time, I had no idea what GP problems were ahead of me, but now that I know, I absolutely would have put Kingdom on teaks, not mahoganies. Lastly, another GP problem from episode 19. I spent about 6 mil on Rathrans for 99 Slayer. Being 17 mil short of affording max after Slayer, I did end up regretting this. It would have taken me a little over an hour to craft them myself with the outfit, and I could have gotten some rune crafting XP out of it. So even though it's pretty cool to learn about the Scar Essence mine, and be able to craft 2.5k Rathrans within 3 minutes, I did end up regretting using it. Those were really my only regrets this series. There were some new methods that were released or discovered after I already trained their skill, but I can't really regret those because they weren't available at the time. And I mean, the game will always get easier. I think one of you asked a question about that, so I'll cover that in the Q&A section, which we can move on to now. So to start off, Earfront asks that if I consider what I've learned, such as no GP for mahogany planks, plus the new updates, how many hours do I think I can shave off? This is a great question, and I put a lot of thought into it. Now, the GP problem is something that I've theoretically thought about since episode 1, but having never played an Ironman, I always just got told and eventually started telling myself that Ironman always have leftover GP, so it'll be fun. But, I mean, this series clearly proved that wrong. However, there were the Easy Escape updates such as Sepulchre being higher agility XP per hour now, and even the Wildy Agility course securing enough GP no matter what. I do think that it would be possible to run this back at under 1550 hours. I don't think 1500 hours is possible yet, but with the potential of Herblore Talk coming out in August being overpowered, depending on how much it speeds Herblore up, I can see sub 1500 being possible at some point. The next question, I decided to combine two since they were similar. Almost Strong Alex asks me what were the worst and best parts of the grind, and Pyroman7196 asked me what my favorite part of the speedrun was, and if there were any single moments that were motivational success. The worst grind I think I can confidently say was endgame questing. Some of the quests endgame I haven't even done on any accounts in my life, and I just overall don't like questing. I remember when Desert Treasure 2 came out, and I knew that I had to do it for 300 quest points, and it was just so unfun. I wanted to do it on an alt to practice, but all of my alts had like 5 pre-quests that weren't done yet, and I just could not be bothered. That one specific quest I remember just never having fun during. The best parts I think I'd say were the most intense methods that I've never tried in any accounts, such as Barblore and Dayalk. I had a lot of fun learning these methods, and I honestly feel like they generally made me better at other parts of the game as well. As for single moments that stood out for more motivation during the run, I would say that overall, my motivation for this run has been pretty high. I do remember after finishing Slayer being a bit more motivated than ever, likely because it was such a long grind, and then on top of that, I also knew that I was nearing the end of the series. So I guess that was the big break for me, but overall the motivation has stayed up there for the majority of the 13 months, pretty consistent. Next question, Bobby the Fish asks me why I didn't just buy Squeal Spins for max. I know you said you haven't played in a while, but the game I'm playing, Old School RuneScape, does not have spins for XP. You're thinking of RuneScape 3. Sup there boy asked me my thoughts on Ironman versus main gameplay now that I've maxed both account types, and if I have any other cool series planned for the channel. Ironman versus main gameplay, to me it all feels the same. I'm not sure if this changes when you're doing PVMing, but with my goals of only skilling, whether it's 200 mils or max capes, Ironman and main feel kind of the same to me. No matter what account I'm playing, I'm still trying to find the best path, best XP rates, and put in as much effort as I want to towards my goal. Of course, Ironman is more of a challenge, but if my current goal is ready to face that challenge head on, I have just as much fun with it as I did on the main. And I do have another cool series planned for the channel, though more specifically, I do want to continue playing my Ironman for a bit longer, and I am hoping to have an episode out within a week of this video being released. Next up, Thomas Wenz 5081 asks me what would be the most significant changes I'd make if I did this again with no alting. Honestly, not that much would change outside of Slayer, at least not significantly. A lot of the methods would still remain the same, just be slightly slower due to no alts. Next up, Tony asks me to please go in depth about my mouse setup and finger exercise that I do because he thinks he cannot physically suffer through 80% of these methods. So I actually don't bother with any finger exercises. I've just kind of been doing this since I was 14 to 16ish. And back then, people always said it was because I was young, but I mean at this point I'm 24 and I still have no issues, so let me give you some of my personal advice. Do not clench your mouse. I've seen people that must think their mouse can grow legs and jump 9 feet in the air while they are 3-ticking because they are holding onto that thing for their dear life. Now, for my specific setup, I have to put a disclaimer because I believe I'm in the minority, so I do not recommend this to others. It's just how I learned and it's always been comfortable for me. I play on 1600 DPI, and I like to have my mouse near the edge of my desk, where my armrest is close to level with it. I don't really have to move my mouse much when playing RS because of the DPI. Typically, I'll slightly move in the third quadrant of my mousepad, but not really wander off to the rest of it. So it's minimal movement on my end, though it is mostly my wrists, and I think most people recommend that you move your mouse with your arm, not wrist, but you asked for my setup and it's always worked for me, so there you go. Next up, Placeholder McPlaceholder asks me, why didn't I create a key combination to hop worlds instead of clicking log out? Does the time hopping worlds affect in-game time? For the first part, specifically being in the wilderness, it seemed counterproductive to hop to another world where there could be another PKer. But I did have my hand resting on my F key that opened that huge ass logout button that I had thanks to the plugin. As for the second part, time does temporarily pause when you use a hotkey to hop, but it's unknown exactly how many ticks it does or does not use. For example, I used a hotkey to hop when I was doing 99 cooking, and if I remember correctly, every 60 minutes that went by, my playtime went up roughly 50 minutes. Saladbur4344 asks me if I will do another attempt in the future if they release new ways to skill that destroy the ways that I skilled on this run. The answer is very likely not. I can't see 5 years into the future, but as of right now, I view these max heap speedruns as a one-time thing, where it should only be attempted once per person in their lifetime because it's such a long grind. Also, the game will always get easier, so I'd essentially be battling against the inevitable. Mrux asked me for a bank video, and great shout, it's why I did one at the beginning of the video. And as for the second part, he asked me if I have anything planned in the future of this account. I do have stuff planned now. As I said earlier, look out for a new episode hopefully within a week after this one is released. Prevent W. Lee asked me if I could change any piece of content that would make the game better, what would I change, and how would I change it. Honestly, in the grand scheme of things, my personal answer would be something that wouldn't be so hot in the community, which would be to make PvP optional and stop releasing new quests. For the sake of the game and the normal player base, honestly, it's a tough question. The game is in such a strong state right now, to where I think it would be hard to pinpoint what I would want to change for the sake of the community. Kevin Fappy asked me how I managed to stay motivated throughout the grind, and how I kept interest in the game despite all of the updates going along. I said earlier, my motivation was high for like 99% of the series. I think I just overall really enjoyed doing what I'm doing, to where the motivation doesn't really leave. As for game updates, I don't really let them get to me. The game getting easier over time is something I've accepted a long time ago. And while I do find some of it very silly and admit that it probably shouldn't be in the game, for the most part, I have no problem adjusting accordingly. Chimesa1210 asked me if I think it was the right choice that me and Hebox didn't race again, but did separate speedruns. I think so. I think it added some variety of content where we were both able to learn a variety of things for both of our account builds versus just doing the same thing the whole way. I know I was passionate about the Iron speedrun for a while before I started it, and I had no personal interest in UIM. Aaron's Lob asked me if I have a document with the route I took for maxing. In all of my videos, I mentioned the Bruseller guide, and that's pretty much all I have to say. The Bruseller guide is for efficient iron starting out, and it does get PVM heavy around chapter 3. From there, I did kind of go my own separate way, but it honestly wasn't too different than the skilling routes that the guide eventually has you go down to max anyway. Incredible Met asked me how I felt after I finished the series in video and not having a massive goal hanging over my head. Honestly, for the first day or two I was kinda confused of what to do with my free time, but I was semi-busy IRL anyways, So once I stopped being busy and I had more free time, the motivation struck back and I got a new goal to work towards. Next up, the Arzonite asks me what were some of the methods utilized that benefited the most from using alts despite being an Ironman. Easily, Slayer. I used alts on so many Slayer tasks, and combining that with the logging out method to save playtime, it was just by far the most different. I did do cranes for 1 mil construction XP, which was very different and alt heavy, although in my opinion it wasn't really enough XP to make a huge difference for the run. DJM206 asks me face reveal when? As of right now, I don't have any intentions of doing a face reveal, so I guess stay tuned. Current Commerce 4774 asks me, will I go for max in Deadman mode? I did an Apocalypse and I absolutely will on the next Deadman. Gospel Fire asks me what food do I eat for maximum gamer energy and why are bananas yellow? My wife and I usually like to meal prep on Sundays throughout the week, so whatever we feel like cooking. Some of my favorites that I've probably eaten a lot over the last year include beef bowls and lemon pepper pasta. As for bananas being yellow, I'm not sure and I don't like bananas anyway, so I'm not going to look it up. Top Video Game Musics asks me if my wrist or fingers ever hurt, and the answer is no. Alex Machin 3255 asks me how much would the items that I sold at 10% value to the general store at the end be worth if I sold them all at GE prices? This is a great question, and if you remember, I actually sold a lot of the 2-dose Barbarian pots, which are nearly never traded in the main game, so it likely would not have even been that much. The most expensive thing was definitely my 11,000 attack potions that I sold, which are worth about 22 mil. If I had to add everything together, I'd say it was probably only around like 30 mil. A Lit Potato 8298 asked me how much action and sunlight I got during the series. It's hard to say actions because some methods were more intensive than others, but if we assume I clicked on average 6,000 times per hour, that would be roughly 9.6 million actions clicked during the series. As for sunlight, I didn't really have a schedule, but we typically go outside 2 to 3 times a week, sometimes more. Next, Ben3213321 asks me if I would ever make a 2277 in Deadman mode or any other RS modes. I already have a Deadman mode series that I actually re-uploaded into an hour video last week that you could check out. And I also speedrun 200 Malal last leagues, which again is in another series you can check out. There are plans to continue this pattern. Achievement Cape and Max Cash Stacks are potential series ideas for the future, although right now I already have something planned out. Dolahan Kai asked me if I will be doing any other speedrun types, such as Grandmaster Combat achievements. I'm not gonna say yes or no to this, but as I stated earlier, stay tuned for the next series. Tony also asks if Ironman selling gold ore at a blast furnace is a real thing, or did I pay people to do it? No, people don't just dump their gold ore in that shop. I was paying 20 mil an hour for Ironman to sit in the shop and sell their own gold ores. If you ask endgame Ironmen who have a lot of PVM KCs, a lot of them have excess gold ore that they don't really care about, and it's not really a high effort thing for them to do either, so 20 mil an hour seems to be a fair price. Poor Thralla asked me what I would have done differently given the content released after I started the account, like Vargamore. I think I covered most of this earlier, though specifically for Vargamore, I would have to calculate to see if Hunter contracts would actually be worth it in the scheme of only doing 99 and not 200 mil. As of right now, that's the only thing that I can imagine changing the meta, but even then I'm not 100% sure. Herblore taught in part 2 in August has much higher potential to change skilling methods for this account. Next up, Jiviagen4144 asks me what speedrun I would like to do next, and if there are any PVM challenges I want to try. For specifically speedruns, after doing back-to-back max capes, I think I'm ready for a break from that category. I do have other ideas though, which will be seen soon. Finally, the last question. Mad Mateus asks me, what was your daily IRL routine like playing this account before and after you went to full-time content creation? This is a great question. So this account I only had about 2 months on before going full-time, but it was about the same routine as my old series. I would work the 9 to 5, do classes or whatever else I needed to do, and then every night I would just try to sacrifice some sleep if I was motivated enough, and try to get a couple hours of gaming in if I could. Going full time, my schedule has been much easier. My wife works a 9 to 5, so I typically just stream around those hours, give or take a couple. Then I do whatever for a couple hours, and I'll consider either hopping back on and playing a different game. Recently-ish, I got into old COD zombies from Black Ops 1 or 2, or I'll sleep like a normal person for a full 7 to 8 hours a night, instead of the 5 to 6 I used to get. While there is no secret the series still took me 14 months to complete, I do play RS a lot more since I went full time, though it has given me the ability to do other things alongside the series, such as seasonals like Deadman mode or leagues. I really hope I didn't miss any questions, and I really just want to say again, thank you guys so much for making all of this possible. I had a ton of fun in this series, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. TY for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace out.